I'm Bruce Fumi. Today, I want to tell you a story from history that's become folklore. You'll find a piece of that folklore in the shape of a broken fiddle here in the Clan Macpherson Museum in Newtonmore. Another piece of that folklore is here in the Dufftown Clock Tower. Now, originally, this was built as the town jail, but today's story comes to a head at a jailhouse a little further north in Banff. But first, I need to tell you about a laird and a beautiful gypsy girl. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right hand side of the screen. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. You could probably just see through the trees behind me Invereshie House. It's private. But in 1675, the Laird Macpherson of Invereshie lived there, just here outside Kingussie. Now, I can't think of a better way for a story to start than for a gentleman laird and a beautiful gypsy girl to meet at a wedding and fall in love. It's got all the feeling of hope and tearing down of cultural and social barriers. When the beautiful gypsy girl falls pregnant, does he disown the child? No. This is a beautiful tale of love and happy ever after. Not quite. You see, he doesn't go off to live the life of a gypsy, and she doesn't become the demure but exotic lady of the manor. But Macpherson of Invereshie does take this child into his house and bring up the young lad Jamie as his own son. Which he was, but not mum. So no fairy tale of social and cultural barrier destruction. But young Jamie Macpherson grows up a product of two worlds. That cocktail of country laird and gypsy traveller in the Speyside landscape must have distilled into one man self-assurance and leadership, skill as a swordsman, but also physical strength and unparalleled musical talent as a fiddler, a point we'll come back to. Now, a tall, strong, handsome, musically talented swordsman born the son of a Highland laird, illegitimate or no, bodes for a comfortable life. Until his dad was killed by caterans, cattle rustlers. I can see the funeral in my mind's eye. A hushed church with whispered words, lips hidden behind cusped hands as judgmental eyes peer over them. With his father gone, obviously the gypsy boy can't stay in the big house. We're told that Jamie went to live permanently with his gypsy family. By all accounts, he did well. Naturally, he rose to lead his own band, trading horses, respected and moving between both communities. Then there was a change. There's a wee railway society that runs day trip trains from Dufftown to Keith and ends just next to St Rufus's Church behind me. As we've moved from the Cairngorms west to Murray, there's been a metamorphosis in Jamie. From honest gypsy horse trader to the leader of a group of freebooting livestock thieves. But not like the caterans who'd killed his father, no. It's said that no act of cruelty or robbery of the widow, the fatherless or the distressed was ever perpetrated under his command. He was like a Robin Hood that ate rowies. It's a Doric thing. The difference was that Jamie Macpherson, Jamie of the Hills as some people called him, was a real person. Maybe more like another Scotsman who lived further south at the same time, Rob Roy. Your attitude to Jamie Macpherson depended on your position. We're told that if you were poor, you thought he was a great guy. If you were a wealthy landowner, let me introduce you to Laird Alexander Duff of Braco. He was like the Duke of Montrose to Rob Roy, the Sheriff of Nottingham to Robin Hood. The most infuriating thing about Macpherson and his band was that they didn't skulk about and hide and hit and run. On a market day, when landowners brought their livestock to market, Macpherson's band were known to march into town behind a piper, nick the livestock, and then march out again. I mean, that is humiliating. And yet the people loved him. He would give some of his ill-gotten gains to the poor. Oh, and he could play the fiddle. There were captures and escapes, collusion and cooperation, until one of the more unsavoury members of his band wanted to rob a gentleman's house whilst the man was mourning the death of his wife and children laid out for interment, and Macpherson said no. Now, you don't argue with a powerfully strong, skilled swordsman like Jamie Macpherson. What you do is betray him to Laird Alexander Duff of Braco. And so, on the day of the St Rufus Fair in Keith, hence the location, in the autumn of 1700, when Macpherson's band came into town, Duff of Braco and his men were waiting. As Macpherson walked along the street, a woman dropped a blanket on him from above, and Duff's posse pounced. In the struggle, one of Macpherson's men was killed, and they were captured and taken to the toll booth in Banff. If I've got this right, then it used to be located in this building here, and public executions were often held at market crosses just like the one behind me. I can only guess, but it strikes me that at the trial they must have struggled to find witnesses to Macpherson's criminal behaviour. You see, he wasn't convicted of theft, robbery or plunder. On November the 8th, 1700, Jamie Macpherson was the last man condemned to death by a sheriff appointed by hereditary title. He was sentenced to hang for the crime of being a gypsy. I'm going to leave that hanging for just a moment. Remember the clock tower? Heritable jurisdictions meant that the sheriff, by hereditary title, had jurisdiction in Banff. But the legend goes that a friend of Macpherson's had ridden to Aberdeen and gained a pardon. When Duff of Braco, remember him, saw a lone rider galloping towards town with a pardon in his outstretched hand, he had the clock put forward by 15 minutes, thus hanging Macpherson, who should have gone free before his time. The clock was later removed here to Dufftown and placed above this toll booth, where it remains today. In the week leading up to Macpherson's execution, he's said to have composed a tune that's entered Scottish folk culture called Macpherson's Rant. Now, the fact that both Robert Burns and Walter Scott worked on it to produce their own versions meant Macpherson's Rant was sure to impact on the national psyche. Add to that the tale that Jamie Macpherson's last act was to sing and play the tune on the gallows for the expectant crowd before offering his fiddle to anyone who could play it. There were no takers, and so he smashed the fiddle, which lies in the Macpherson Museum in Newtonmore to this day. If you'd like to hear about the other Scottish rogue who lived at the same time as James Macpherson, then why not watch my video about Rob Roy McGregor here. I mean, Dawkins can be a lamb at a line. Cheery and Rast.